number 2 was we went to New Orleans. I was 17 years old, I want to say. So this was 6 or 7 years after Katrina happened. But there was still destruction, like there was still a huge impact. And so Habitat for Humanity was helping people build back their homes. And so again, they just invited these 17-year-olds to come and help and volunteer.
Because he's John Selmeyer.
Hello, everyone. I am joined here today by my youngest sister, Christina.
Who's older than you? What up?
But she's still my youngest sister.
Hello.
Except all of us worked at Hy-Vee, and somehow they thought the oldest sibling was the youngest sibling.
I tried to tell everyone we were twins, and literally no one fell for it.
That you and I were twins? Or
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No one believed it.
Do you remember we kept joking if I put on a wig? And I was like, wah.
And that's me.
Well, welcome to the show. Nice to have you on.
Thank you.
So I thought it would be fun to have you on the podcast because a lot of people don't know much about social work. It's kind of a foreign topic to them, especially, I mean, it's one of those things that either you're very involved with or you're not involved with at all. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I thought, one, we could talk about us growing up. We can share some sibling memories.
Love it. Yep.
2, we can talk about church was kind of a big part of our lives. I would say I'm not as religious as you are nowadays. Like, I don't go to church as often as you do, which you go to church every Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
I go. You told me I have to go twice a year, and I've been keeping that up so far.
Thank you. Yes, because you're the godfather of my child.
Exactly. Yes. I'm the godfather. Then we can talk about how maybe growing up, the church life was inspiration for potentially your social work career now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that sound like a good summation?
Sounds perfect. Let's do it.
So, a little bit about Chrissy and I. We have the same exact sense of humor, which it's one of those things where in the office, when someone looks at the camera when something awkward happens, it's that sense of humor.
Yes.
Down to a T.
Like, this happens at the dinner table at my mom's often.
If someone sneezes, Chrissy and I look at each other like, did you see that? It's that specific. So I've always enjoyed it. We, every Sunday, would go to church. Then we would go to our Nana's. And then we would go to our grandmother's house. At our Nana's, we would watch random VHS tapes. Did you have a favorite VHS tape at Nana's house?
Ooh. This is hard. There was like 4 to choose from. There was Hercules, Homeward Bound, and some other ones I can't think of off the top of my head, but there was literally only 4. And I'm going to go with Hercules. We can pretty much recite that whole movie.
Your memory is so much better than mine because I only remembered there being Homeward Bound. Homeward Bound 1 and 2. Was there a third one also? I don't know.
I know there was 1 and 2 because that's all Nana owned.
There's one where they fought like a saber-tooth, or not a saber-tooth, like a coyote or do you remember that?
No.
There's one where they're in a city and there's one where they're in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wilderness one is the first one because I showed it to Otto recently.
Did you really?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Did he like it?
Yeah, he watched the whole thing.
What?
I know, and he never pays attention to TV, really. So,
Oh my God.
yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Talking cats, talking dogs.
Talking cats and dogs. And we would run into some aunts, some uncles, some cousins occasionally. And then we would go to...
Oh, don't forget the hikes. We used to go on hikes
Oh, yeah. We'd get fossils.
at the creek. Mm-hmm.
And one memory I have very specifically, I watched crawdads fight a snake.
I was probably doing something else.
You were collecting
I
fossils.
was actually paying attention to the fossils and
And
wildlife.
I was watching crawdads fight snakes.
Nana would make a massive feast for just a random Sunday lunch. Like, it would be like steak, like a 4-course meal. And I would be like, I want hot dogs with the ends cut off, please.
I remember that. I remember you eating that. What's sad, probably because we were kids at the time, I don't remember much of the feasts unless it was a holiday.
Oh, wow, really? Because,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like every Sunday.
But I was 3 years younger than you. And then, of course, she developed dementia and all that. But I remember eating ice cream, a lot of ice cream at her house.
Oh, yeah. And it was always vanilla bean.
Yeah. Vanilla bean ice cream.
Yes. So good.
Delicious. And then we would go to our grandmother's house, Jean, and party with all the cousins.
Yep. Play a lot of board games, card games.
And we still go there nowadays, not as frequent, but they make essentially the same meals. So I don't know if I remember the meals from when I was a kid, or if it's because it's a similar menu from when I was a kid. I'm like, yeah, I know what they made because it's still the same things we eat now.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Grandpa would make Spanish rice. He would make enchiladas.
Oh, yeah, those enchiladas.
So good. One time, Johnny tried to challenge himself to eat. How many did you eat?
13.
13 enchiladas. That was unforgettable. And now my aunts take over the cooking, and it's delicious. Spaghetti, baked chicken, stuff like that.
All the good stuff. And every once in a while, they make like a Salisbury steak that's so good. And the reason why I bring this all up, one, is because Chrissy's my sibling. But two, after a long day of church, going to two grandmother's house, then we would go to youth group.
Right, yeah. I didn't know where you were going with that.
Yes. Yeah, that's where I was going.
Okay, yeah.
And I mostly remember...
It started at like 7.
Yeah, it was late.
It was really late. And it was in Grandview.
Okay, so you remember Coronation.
So we would drive from like Cleveland, Missouri to Lee Summit to Grandview.
Yeah.
In a day, yeah.
Which is absurd. And we've gone to many different churches in the area. When we went to church at Grandview, so we're going Grandview, Cleveland, Lee Summit, Grandview.
Yeah.
All in one day. Which
Yeah.
is kind of absurd.
Mileage
Anyways.
is ridiculous. Yeah.
And we were very involved with youth group. And youth group was, I thought it was very fun. We would do activities that related to learning about God. And at the very end, it would get serious and we'd sit in a circle and we'd pray and there'd be a song and there'd be a lesson at the end. But there'd also be a lot of activities where there'd be dodgeball, basketball, a lot of different things. So I thought it was good exposure on a lot of different spiritual and physical levels too.
Yeah, 100%. I was like one of the little leaders. I can't think of the names right now.
Yeah.
But basically, that was always the structure. Someone had to come up with a new icebreaker. And so that would kind of, get everybody involved and make everybody feel a little bit more comfortable. Like Jonah was saying, like dodgeball or whatever, like silly icebreakers. And then we would go up and do like a lesson, and another peer was in charge of that. So it was kind of cool, and I think it made it more impactful because someone your age was the one leading it. It wasn't like a 40-year-old random guy with like a wife and kids. It was like someone in high school that you looked up to, that you were learning from. So it kind of made it more impactful and personable. And then we would go down for a snack, and then we'd go back up for prayer, which was also led by one of the peer leaders. Sometimes they would just like light a candle in a dark room and they would just open it up to prayer. Sometimes they would play a song. We would all reflect on it and then end it with prayer. So it just looked different every time. And I think that's why it was interesting and like fun to come back to, because it was the same pattern of events, but it was different events happening, if that makes sense.
What's so funny from my perspective, since I'm 3 years younger than you, right?
Yeah.
I didn't catch on to any of that. But now that you say it, it hadn't occurred to me, yeah, you guys were the ones leading pretty much all of it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm just a little kid doing whatever the older people tell me to do.
And the adult leaders, I mean, we had adult leaders there. Like, it was supervised.
Yeah.
So if something got off the rails or like somebody was saying something that was a little off, they would kind of rein it in.
Took a field trip. We went to Cool Crest once.
Oh, yeah. I was like in the middle of youth here. Where did you go?
Remember we went to Cool
No,
Crest?
you mean like we would have fun events.
Yeah.
We'd go to Cool Crest, went to Worlds of Fun. We'd go to the zoo, stuff like that.
It was a good learning environment. And then I would say you even went a step further and you attended, what do you call it? There's the stereotype.
Mission trip.
Is it called a mission trip?
Yeah.
Wow, that
I
seems
went on
like...
3 different ones.
Wow, 3?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about each one.
Okay. It's funny because the song Country Roads came on today, and it took me back to the first mission trip I ever went on. I was 16 years old. It was in the hills of West Virginia. It was called Nazareth Farm, and it's a Catholic-led organization. And basically, you go there and you cannot wear any makeup. You cannot have your cell phone. There's no signal even if you wanted it. So you're not like focused on taking pictures or texting or social media. You can't take a hot shower. There were like these bucket showers that you took out like in the field. So the whole focus was on simplicity and like just focusing on yourself and God and relationships with others and not just the outside noise of life. And so basically we would read to children in Appalachia. We would fix homes of elderly people. I think we did siding, painting, roofing, that kind of thing. And I was like 16 years old at the time. So again, just these adults put so much faith in us to allow us to just go work on people's homes and but learn really important life skills. So that was pretty cool. So that was Nazareth Farm. I was so week long.
And
Long car ride.
one thing about that, you were gone. I would just go up to your room and be like, huh, Chrissy's gone. And then just walk away. Be like, I wonder where she's at.
Where'd you go?
Because if you were 16, then I was 13. Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, what was
You're
number...
just like, well, she's gone for
Where
3.
is she?
Bye.
Mom should be concerned by now. And then what's number 2?
Number 2 was we went to New Orleans. I was 17 years old, I want to say. So this was 6 or 7 years after Katrina happened. But there was still destruction, like there was still a huge impact. And so Habitat for Humanity was helping people build back their homes. And so again, they just invited these 17-year-olds to come and help and volunteer. Learned some tool work and stuff like that. We also got to engage in the families that were going to be living in the homes. Like they were also a part of working and helping. So that was just so interesting to hear everything that they had gone through and see from their perspective how this national event that we all heard about like actually impacted their life and how they were like working really hard to try to build back something that they had lost.
I have 2 comments about Katrina in general. Not specific to your mission trip, but on a brighter scale. A lot of people who are younger won't realize the impact it had on society.
Yeah.
It was major in the news. Bush was president at the time, right?
Yep.
And he was sending the National Guard down there.
And people were like hunkered down in the dome, the football dome.
Yeah.
And just trying to survive. Like people were donating bottles of water and blankets and they had nothing. Like they had the clothes on their back and that was it.
And one of my best friends growing up, Matt, Shiny, moved here because of Katrina.
Yes. Yeah. Our neighbor.
It's weird to think someone I know personally moved to Missouri because of Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
But that was a significant event of our lives. I don't know why other hurricanes don't seem as significant as Katrina did. I mean, they are, but the news really was just like, oh my gosh, this is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then number 2.
I think, I was just going to say, I think because of Katrina, there were a lot more preventative measures put in place for housing.
Yeah. Didn't the dams break or something because of Katrina?
I think so.
We have
Not
to
as
ask
good.
Dad.
Yeah.
Corps of
ask Dad.
Engineers.
Our dad went down to help also because he worked for the Corps of Engineers and he like volunteered to be somebody to go help and just try to map things out and try to improve things for people.
You know how I said 2 things? That was going to be number 2.
Oh.
No, I'm glad you brought it up because it's funny to think you went down there and helped, but Dad was also, like, from the government point of view, going down and helping out too. So it's kind of nice to see it from 2 different perspectives.
Yeah, and Dad went down more immediately, whereas I was like years after the fact, and people are still trying to rebuild and regroup, and it makes you think of the California wildfires right now.
Yeah.
It's out of the news, like people haven't really talked about it recently, but those people are going to be building back their homes for years.
Or Flint, Michigan's water crisis. I've heard they still, I mean, last time I checked, they still don't have drinking water.
It was horrible.
It's just things you don't think about because the news moves on, but people are still struggling and trying to rebuild.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then you had mentioned 3 trips total. What was the third one?
I went back to Nazareth Farm in West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I have to go back. I had an opportunity. There was like a lottery system of the amount of kids that got to go because it was so limited. I think 5 or 6 were chosen. And so I was like, I want to go back. So they put me back in the lottery and I got it.
Oh, it's a lottery system? So that many people want to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it's just such a, honestly, for me, it was a life-changing experience. And Dad's kind of talked about that with me. Like, he's like, after you came back from that, I just noticed a difference in you wanting to help people more and like caring more and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Our dad is a very wise man. We go to our dad for wisdom and our mom for advice. So that's good. It's a nice balance. So we talked about your mission trips. And then what made you decide to get a bachelor's in social work?
This is so hard. I think.
Sum it up.
Okay, so this is the best story I could say, okay? Well, I'm going to tell you 2 stories. They're both quick. You know, like when you're trying to scope out schools and you like go down for a visit to a university and you're like, oh, what's this about? And then they have like different career choices.
Yeah.
So my mom and I went down to Springfield, Missouri State, and we went around and we're like looking at the different choices, and we just came up to social work, and the lady at the table explained it to me, and I was like, okay, this is it.
Wow.
This is what I want to do. And my mom was like, there's other tables. Think like this theater one looks cool. That lady looks interesting. Or like there's a medical field, there's law. And I was like, no, this is it. This is what I want to do. And that was it. But when it's funny you like keep bringing up youth group because I think it was kind of like very formative for me.
Yeah.
We were at an ice skating at Crown Center, one of the fun events. So it wasn't even like a religious focused event, but we're at the ice skating at Crown Center and I'm talking to our youth pastor. And he just looked at me and he was like, have you ever considered doing social work? I think you would be really good at it. And I was like, no, I haven't. Thanks for letting me know. Like, I'll just put that in my back pocket.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what that meant until I went to Missouri State and learned more. So I was like, wow, this is it. I never strayed from my major. I know some people switch back and forth, but I just really felt like God was calling me in that direction and just like showing me, like giving me the piece that like, this is what you're meant to do.
And was that Pastor Ken?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Ken Quinfelson.
We've always loved Ken. He's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's motivating, though, that I feel like everything has kind of led you up to this, and it's a big part of your personality because you've always been a generous and kind person,
Well, thank you.
just to let you know. So, just to boost your ego. And you have a bachelor's in social work. You mentioned you went to Springfield, which is MSU. And then you had
Go Bears.
Go Bears. You have a master's, correct?
Yes, in social work at KU.
MSW, is that what that's called?
Uh-huh. Yeah, did you do your research?
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you know that? What the heck? Again, like people in the field are just like, cool. Like, whatever.
Did you say you are working on or you had ever planned on getting your LCSW?
I have it. So first you have to get your LMSW.
And not to be... isn't there an LCSW and an LSCW?
LSCSW.
Oh, wow.
I
Which one
have
do you have?
both of them.
You have both?
Yes, I do.
Ooh.
It's called reciprocity.
Nice.
No one that's not a social worker cares about this. Probably my social work friends would be laughing right now. But basically, you become a licensed... There's like a lot of tiers. I think with a lot of jobs there are, but you get your master's. If you want to become licensed, you become a licensed master social worker, and then you can do 2 years of supervision under a supervisor and take a really hard, intense test that's 3.5 hours long, and then you can get your clinical license.
Wow. And you did all of that?
I did all of it. I sure did.
During your master's degree? I was rooting for you. I was like, whoa.
And I was in the advanced standing program, which was a 1-year program, literally May to June. It's like very competitive, but it is the most intense program.
Mm-hmm.
They told us at the beginning of that program, if you are dating someone, you will probably break up by the end of this program.
Wow.
But Alex and I stuck it out.
Nice. Alex was like, I got all these games back here. He's like, you do your thing.
You're fine.
But what I was going to say is during your master's degree, I was like rooting for you. I was like, woo, go Chrissy. I didn't even know you were doing your LCSW. That's crazy.
Well, LCSW, I just did my LCSW.
I still feel like I didn't even know about any of this. That's impressive.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
It was hard. It was hard.
When you got your bachelor's, you had to do an internship. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you don't have to be, I don't know if you're allowed to name, obviously because of HIPAA, you can't name people's names, but even,
No.
yeah, but even you don't have to name places that you worked.
Do you
but,
want your first lawsuit on a podcast? I'm just kidding.
Woo! But if you want to name demographics you've worked with or vulnerable populations or whatever way you want to describe them.
Okay, so I worked with homeless or houseless, if you prefer that term, veterans. That was like my first gig. I should say during my master's, I also did an internship and I was working with severely mentally ill children that had experienced a lot of trauma.
Can I preface with one thing?
Yep.
Terms are constantly changing. So the terms we're using today are most likely correct. And if they're not, we apologize. But legitimately 6 months from now, these phrases could be different. So if you're listening to this at a later date than it's posted, just look at the timestamp just for reference. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
I like to add disclaimers
And
just so I look smart.
Another disclaimer, like I know I should be using people first language. So like people are people before they are a diagnosis or a disease or an illness. So I should say I was working with children who experienced mental illness. They'd experienced a lot of trauma. And so they were in like an inpatient facility. So it's actually been closed since my internships. Again, just kind of how things change and like people realize implications of certain practices. It's just interesting.
Would it be similar to the job I had? Was it a behavioral health facility for children? Is that essentially what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then, like I said, then I worked with veterans experiencing homelessness or houselessness. And it was so interesting because when I was in school, people were like, with social work, like there's a lot of different populations or like niches that you could seek out or go to. And maybe some people don't want to work with people dealing with substance use. Maybe some people don't want to work with people with a criminal background. Honestly, truly, in social work, you're going to encounter everyone with these types of issues or concerns. So
Yeah.
even if you think, oh, I probably won't do that, you probably will. I think it's just a field where you have to have a lot of open mind and see the strengths in people and see the best in people and see that people are just trying to do their best and put their best foot forward. So it was just really interesting to see. I think when you hear the word veteran, people think of a World War II veteran and they fought in the war and they were like just very heroic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? Whereas this job opened my eyes to the trauma or issues that veterans face after they're out of the service and just like the lack of support that there is in society, where it's like we have this like beautiful image of what a veteran is, but it's like the practice of support isn't always there. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. Today, my oldest son is always wanting to help the homeless. And he even saw a homeless person and said, "Dad, what are they doing?" I said, "Ask your Aunt Chrissy. She's a social worker."
What were they doing?
It was just a homeless person asking for money.
Oh,
Okay.
I was like, what was the context? Okay.
So anyways, and by the way, I don't have a social work background, which is why I'm not up to date on the lingo, just FYI. And today there was a person, how do you say it? Person with homelessness?
A person experiencing homelessness. Or now there's a push for the term houselessness, which I don't understand. I will be for real. Somebody needs to explain that one to me, because I think if you ask someone living on the street if they had a preference, I think they would say, just try to find me some help. You know what I mean? They're not focused on these types of things.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
Okay, so there was a houseless person today who was holding a sign saying, "I'm a vet."
Okay.
And Ben was like, "What does that mean?" And I'm like, "Well, it means they were a part of the military." And we started talking about it. And Ben starts digging through the car looking for money. He's, "We need to get money from this person." I felt so bad. But I think it circles back to what you're saying. We need to have systems in place for our vets where they're supported when they're done serving.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
That's
Them
the
getting
biggest thing.
acclimated to civilian life. That's something that our dad taught us, because when he worked for the Corps of Engineers, he was a civilian overseas and he worked with a lot of people in the military. And he said they talked about how they had a hard time acclimating to civilian life, and it made them join the military again because they didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Or sometimes people don't have the option, like if they get hurt,
Yeah,
it can be really challenging. So I think there definitely needs to be more support.
for sure.
Kind of a full circle moment of this whole podcast summary. 2 years ago, Ben and I were in church because he was in school of religion and I would drive him. And he was like, "Why are you giving money to church?" And I was like, "Well, they help people that, necessarily don't have a home." And Ben was like, "I thought everyone had a home."
Aww.
And I was like the first person to teach Ben about
Did you lay the seeds for my son to become a social worker?
Maybe I did. I don't know.
Not just this podcast came full circle, but my life became full circle.
I forgot other jobs I've had.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Sorry, real quick. I worked in a skilled nursing facility / assisted living / independent living facility. So I was one social worker for over 100 residents,
Wow.
which was a lot.
I've had to manage only 12 patients, and that was a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
So more than 100 is insane.
I was very overwhelmed. And so I think that's also the path that people don't realize they're social workers in nursing homes. And then after that, there was a grant for college students. It was like a research study, actually. And so the research study was to see if having a social worker impacted graduation rates.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and my coworker, 2 other coworkers, we were going into community colleges and providing social work services to students to see if it would impact their graduation and see if they could make it to graduation day.
How long were you at that job?
1 year because of COVID.
Okay.
So once COVID happened, the funders backed out and everything went crazy, just like for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is where I'm at now. And so currently I'm working with people living with HIV and AIDS
Yes.
in the medical setting.
And I wanted to mention, weren't you nominated or did you win an award?
I did win the award.
And what did you win?
It's the Red Ribbon Award for HIV Patient Advocate. So I was very proud of that. One of my coworkers nominated me and it was just like a huge honor. And I told her, like, I really feel like there are other people working at this job that really deserve it more than I do. And she was like, "Oh, stop." So she was just like so kind and encouraging. And it was just like a really big honor to win. I've never won an award in a professional setting. So it just kind of felt like just a really cool way of recognition in a field that you don't always feel recognized. So it was just really special. It was really cool.
Yeah. And
My mom tried to crash it and I was like, "No."
You definitely deserve the award, by the way.
Thank you.
And after talking about how pretty much your whole life has already been social work, it just makes sense.
There are days that are hard and at a level that I think most people outside of social work can't relate to. It's just a frank statement.
Yeah.
We hear about people's worst days and sometimes their best days. Like when there's a win, it really feels like a strong win, but when there's a loss, it feels like a strong loss. So I feel like a big part of this job is having empathy and like caring about people. So some days I question my life choices and if I should have become a social worker. But I know at the end of the day, like I truly feel like this is my calling and that I am supposed to be doing this,
Yeah.
and that I have support to get me through it. I think that's like one of the biggest things is like having support to be able to make it in this kind of field. And my team is awesome. They're incredible. So especially Tatiana, if you're listening to this, and family has gotten me through a lot. So, even though my family doesn't really know what I do day to day, or like I can't always share what I'm doing or what client situations are, I have a lot of support. So it's gotten me this far.
And
9 years. It'll be 10 years. I know it'll be 10 years in May
wow.
in the field. Yeah.
Congrats on 10 years this May.
So close.
Woo. And kudos because as I had a social work job for 1 month and I said, peace. So it's not for everyone. Not for the faint of heart.
For everyone.
For sure.
But it helps to laugh about it. What are you doing?
I thought it was important. One of my past jobs, they had pillars for performance and development. One of their pillars was humor.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And not that many workplaces, I don't know any other workplace ever that has had that as a pillar. But one of theirs was humor. You need to be able to laugh at yourself and laugh at situations that are awkward or embarrassing or difficult, so you're able to get through.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. So I thought a good way to end the episode would be asking about if someone is looking for resources, maybe they're going through, any kind of situation right now and they need any kind of resource. Where's a good place to start looking? What can they do right now?
So there's an organization called United Way, and basically their whole job is to connect people to resources. And they're national, but for Kansas City, it's United Way 211. You can dial 211, or they have an actual phone number. And basically they will connect you to an operator and just ask you what your needs are, and they will try to connect you. So if you're having difficulty paying your utilities, if you're having a hard time accessing food, if you need mental health support, they will get some basic information from you and then provide you with a list of places, at least 3 places that you can go to.
Wow.
The other thing too is I feel like just mental health is extremely important. If you're experiencing any kind of mental health crisis, thoughts of suicide, anything like that, there's a national line that's 988. So instead of 911, it's 988. It's 24/7, totally free, and you can call it anytime. And they'll also just provide you support when you need it. So I feel like those are probably the 2 biggest things that I start people with.
Yeah. I feel like I've learned so much just throughout this episode, so I greatly appreciate it. Is there anything left you want to add about the topic of social work in general?
I think that I kind of touched on hard days and stressful moments, but I do feel fulfilled at this job. You know what I mean? In this field, I feel a sense of fulfillment. When somebody thanks you for the help you've done, when you go above and beyond, when somebody's like, hey, this thing worked out and I appreciated your part in it, or you supported me when I needed this motivation or whatever, it really makes a difference. To me, I've met so many interesting people, and I think I've worked with some extremely impoverished people. I've worked with some of the richest people in Kansas. So I feel like people are people. Everybody has needs. Everybody has issues, concerns. Everybody needs love and support. So it's an honor to be in this field, even when it's hard.
Yeah. No, I think that's inspiring. And I think it's good to know it's not just one-sided. And it's also not a dichotomy. It's a broad range, and everybody has struggles and needs no matter who they are.
Yes, absolutely.
So, no, I think that's inspiring. Thank you for being the most wonderful social worker in the world.
We would not say that.
And also thank you for being my sister, Chrissy.
Thank you.
My sister.
Love you, brother.
Love you too. Peace out, Chrissy.
Bye.
Sum it up.